Hello everybody and welcome to our discussion on the Indian road sector, a sector which has seen a lot of activity in the last 2 quarters. We have with us Sudip, who will lend his insights on the sector. So Sudip, given all that's been happening in the sector, all the activity that we're seeing, what would be your opinion on the risks in the sector today?
We've come out with a study today on the BOT projects, which are both toll-based as well as annuity-based. These can be divided into two. The first part is the under construction projects. Now, under construction projects we are looking at about 9,500 kilometers of such projects. And our study says that nearly 50% of these, or roughly about 5,000 kilometers, which are about 35 projects out of 90 projects, are at risk of not getting completed on time. The reason is that these projects are facing implementation challenges in terms of land acquisition issues, right-of-way issues and other clearances. And they are also facing challenges in terms of the sponsors of these projects not being able to get in equity in order to fund the time overruns and the cost overruns. So those are the two reasons why we find that 50% of under construction projects are at risk.
So that's the under construction portfolio, but you were also talking about the operational portfolio. What would that look like?
So under the operational portfolio, we have roughly again about 6,000 kilometers of operational portfolio, which is a mix of toll as well as annuity. We find that while largely the annuity projects are safe, but in terms of the toll-based projects, roughly about 40% of the projects, or about 2,500 kilometers or so, are under the risk of the project cash flows not being adequate to service debt. The reason why this is happening is that whatever these projects had envisaged at the time of commissioning in terms of traffic flow and revenue growth, those projections have not panned out. So we roughly require about 35% traffic growth, revenue growth over the next 2 years, which is not going to happen, and therefore there is going to be a shortfall in debt servicing. Now, many of these projects are backed by strong sponsors. So we'll find that in many of these projects, the ability of sponsors to come in and plug the cash flow mismatches is going to be really critical.
We've also been seeing a slew of reforms and policy initiatives being introduced by the government. What would be the impact these have on the risks that we just spoke about?
So I think on the reforms side, we can classify the reforms into those that are directed towards developers and those that are directed towards the projects. Under construction projects especially, the reforms that are going to be most impactful are going to be this increased focus towards getting land and right-of-way issues sorted out. And I think with the Prime Minister's office also now focused on monitoring the large projects, we are surely going to find that the remaining 50% of under construction projects will not turn risky, and they will be able to get completed on time. On the reforms that are directed towards the operational projects, those are the ones that the promoters would be able to take advantage of in terms of getting out of operational projects, because after 2 years of the COD, 100% exit is now allowed. That in turn will release funds that the promoters or the developers can use in their under construction projects. As far as the reforms that are concerned for the future awarding of the future projects that will take place, I think the new model concession agreement that allows for back-ending of premium, and the fact that 80% of the land is going to be made available before the award of the project are the two most impactful set of reforms, which will result in an increased interest in the road sector.
So, given all this, what is your outlook on the sector currently?
I think we need to see whether the private sector operators or developers come back to the road sector in a big way, because I think you need their participation if we are to see implementation of the future awards that are going to take place. As of now, our view is that most of the projects that will take place in the next 1 to 2 years would be based on public funding. We have also seen that there's a new model called the hybrid annuity model that has been unveiled. I think that model will result in a lower risk for the private developers, and therefore we'll have to see whether private sector developers take advantage of that model and come into the road sector in a big way. The third, I think the aspect that we need to monitor is there is a certain need of funds for under implementation projects to fund the cost overruns. So if we are able to get foreign investors to come in, and we are able to get a newer set of developers come in, and especially in those projects which are stuck, or where operational projects the existing promoters who are stressed out, they are able to exit. I think that again would result in the much needed funds that will be required for under implementation projects.
Thanks so much, Sudip, and thank you for joining us on CRISIL TV.